Doy la palabra ahora al señor Ministro de Relaciones Exteriores de San Vicente y las Granadinas. Tiene usted la palabra, señor Ministro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Permit me to congratulate you on your election as chair of these proceedings, and on behalf of my entire delegation, to express sincere appreciation to the government and people of the Republic of Paraguay for the warmth with which we have been received and the kind hospitality shown. Allow me also, Mr. Chairman, to recognize and pay tribute to the role of Secretary General Jose Miguel Insulza, who has toiled long in the vineyard of integration and development in this region. Unlike Shakespeare's Anthony, I come to praise you and not bury you. But I know that this is your last time presiding over this assembly, and I wish to thank you for the wonderful work you have done. Mr. Chairman, we're gathered here in Paraguay under the theme of development with social inclusion. This cross-cutting and multifaceted theme has profound local, regional, and international implications and provides the OAS with a succinct raison d'etre as it looks to its future role in an increasingly complex and interconnected world. In our local context, St. Vincent and the Grenadines remains firmly and demonstrably committed to the concept of development with social inclusion in both word and deed. We have embarked on a wide-ranging set of transformative policies and programs, including our Youth Empowerment Service Program, it's called the YES Program, the Support for Education and Training Program, the Home Help for the Elderly, a comprehensive education revolution to expand access to educational opportunity, the Revolving Farmers Support Fund, the establishment of a Ministry of Rural Transformation, the establishment of the National Economic, Social and Development Council, and a wide-ranging housing and infrastructure program that supports and connects poor and rural populations in our country. These programs have achieved many notable and measurable successes, including the reduction of indigent poverty from 26% to 3% of the population, the halving of undernourishment from 11 to 4.9%, and the increasing access to secondary school education from 35% to 100% of eligible students. With the cooperation of the government of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and other generous partners, we are in the midst of providing laptop computers to every single student attending secondary school, to buttress an earlier effort that placed a laptop in the hands of every single primary school student. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is mindful of the need to pursue a holistic and inclusive developmental path. As the world continues to grapple with the fallout of the global economic and financial crisis, spurred in large measure by yawning inequality and rapacious variants of unregulated casino capitalism, St. Vincent and the Grenadines adheres to a people-centered developmental model, with poverty reduction, educational opportunity, job creation, foreign direct investment, and support for small and medium enterprise at its core. Also, of course, the support of many states around this table, bilaterally and through cooperation and solidarity mechanisms like ALBA and Petrocaribe, has been indispensable. However, our developmental goals and many of those of our sister CARICOM states continue to be stymied by the narrow and misleading characterization of our economies as medium and high income, based solely on a crude calculation of per capita GDP. These characterizations limit access to concessional financing, curtail options for debt relief, constrain tremendously our fiscal space, and make it painfully difficult to build resilience against our extreme vulnerability to an unending series of exogenous shocks. The grave and gathering threat of climate change is but one of these exogenous shocks. For St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the wider CARICOM region, crippling climate events are now an almost annual occurrence. For example, in the space of 3 short hours of unseasonal rains and flash flooding last Christmas Eve, St. Vincent and the Grenadines suffered loss and damage to the tune of 17% of its gross domestic product. The year before that, we experienced an extended drought, which devastated agricultural output. The year before that, in April 2011, floods again caused epic destruction in the most vulnerable parts of the country. And the year before that, in 2010, Hurricane Thomas similarly dealt our country a debilitating body blow. 4 years, 4 climate events, each causing loss and damage with a near double-digit shock to our GDP, all while grappling with the global economic meltdown and its myriad developmental impacts. Given our small size, each one of these disasters, either natural or man-made, is not localized or sectoral, but it is national in scope. The vulnerabilities of our small island developing states are acute and intensifying, and our fiscal space to withstand or build resilience is almost non-existent. In this, the International Year of Small Island Developing States, we head to a September conference in Samoa with the goal of acknowledging the unique characteristics and vulnerabilities of our countries and crafting global solutions to combat them. Such solutions will necessarily involve moving beyond per capita GDP as a measure of economic health, affording opportunities for concessional financing, preferential trading arrangements, and debt relief, supporting adaptation efforts, and making meaningful commitments on climate change. We call on the OAS to support this SIDS agenda in the interest of our people's survival. Mr. Chairman, within the Caribbean, we recognize that social inclusion depends fundamentally on the unambiguous establishment and vigorous defense of basic human rights standards. While we all have our struggles and shortcomings in the pursuit of greater human rights protections, our region has made tremendous strides in recent years. Our recognition of the role of human rights and social inclusion in the developmental process is one of the many reasons that we remain deeply disturbed by the ongoing plight of those thousands of Dominican-born citizens who have been retroactively denied their rights to nationality, identity, and equal protection by the Constitutional Court in the land of their birth. That decision and its continuing fallout, by its very nature, are exclusionary and run counter to the theme of this gathering. While we take note of recent efforts to address the situation, St. Vincent and the Grenadines considers them to be inadequate to redress the scope and scale of the human rights violation, which we consider to be the most urgent such crisis currently affecting our region. We call again for the OAS and all members to engage fully and in good faith to assist in ensuring that this blot on our collective conscience is fully and urgently redressed. Similarly, St. Vincent and the Grenadines supports all ongoing efforts to reform and revitalize our hemispheric bodies whose mandates include the protection of human rights. The rights to development, housing, education, sanitation, food security, and adequate health care are still under threat in our hemisphere, and our regional bodies must be sensitive and responsive to the need to promote and protect these pillars of social inclusion with minimal interference from those who seek to define our local human rights priorities and norms from far-flung locales. Mr. Chairman, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, like many of the members of this body, was profoundly shaped by the scourge of native genocide and the dehumanizing slave trade, which had obvious and continuing impacts on social inclusion and national development. The wounds of slavery run deep, and many of our modern-day struggles to overcome a host of developmental challenges is directly and inextricably tied to the systematic exclusion and exploitation of our native and enslaved population for the lasting economic benefit of European colonial and slave trading nations. CARICOM has adopted a regional strategic and operational plan for Caribbean reparatory justice and hopes to convene a conference between Caribbean and European leaders, which would provide an opportunity for in-depth discussions on this fundamentally important issue. Our quest for reparations has been endorsed by FILAC, and I encourage the OAS to make a similar recognition of our very just cause. Mr. Chairman, our region has been indelibly scarred by the war on drugs. We have all devoted tremendous resources to various interdiction, eradication, and incarceration efforts, and we shall undoubtedly continue to do so, lest the criminality and societal decay associated with illicit narcotics gain a stronger and more injurious foothold in our societies. However, an unintended consequence of our war on drugs has been the social exclusion of large swaths of our population, particularly many youth who may have been only tangentially related to the organized narcotics trade. Similarly, our policies have marginalized countless law-abiding and hard-working individuals, families, villages, and regions, many of whom had the misfortune of simply living in the wrong part of town. Our shared experiences in this struggle have led to a great deal of soul-searching of late, and a reconsideration of our methods and areas of focus. St. Vincent and the Grenadines has taken note of a number of political, legal, and policy shifts in our hemisphere, particularly in the manner in which states confront the production and use of marijuana. CARICOM has established a regional commission to examine many of these issues, and we welcome an enhanced role by the OAS and the sharing of experiences and best practices among member states with a view to creating more efficacious, humane, and socially inclusive strategies to combat drug abuse. Similarly, the destabilizing role played by the trade in and use of illegal firearms is well known throughout our region. Almost every town in every member state of the OAS has been touched in some way by the senseless killings and palpable fear that accompany the illicit small arms trade. CARICOM played a leading role in laying the groundwork for an historic arms trade treaty last year, and now hopes to host the Secretariat charged with its implementation in Trinidad and Tobago. St. Vincent and the Grenadines urges prompt ratification of the treaty and support for our joint ambition to host this important body. Mr. Chairman, the theme of inclusion must be extended to our hemispheric and multilateral affairs. We are long past the unfortunate era of Cold War polarization and isolation, and we must continue to solidify our regional commitment to fully inclusive dialogue, cooperation, and deeper integration. In this modern context, most of us have recognized the utter inapplicability, impracticality, and indeed illegality of the continuing outmoded embargo against the Republic of Cuba. Similarly, Cuba's full, equal, and unconditional participation in next year's Summit of the Americas in Panama must be assured by this body. Cuba's presence and full participation in that summit is an important litmus test of our shared commitment to inclusivity and sovereignty. Our regional commitment to sovereignty and peace must similarly inform our support for the legitimate and democratically elected government of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, which continues to seek a peaceful solution to criminal violence and instigated unrest. We must also support the legitimate sovereign rights of Argentina in the ongoing dispute over the Malvinas Islands and call for long overdue negotiations with the United Kingdom to commence. Mr. Chairman, the Organization of American States is arguably the world's oldest regional organization. As newer regional groupings proliferate, often with overlapping mandates and memberships, venerable bodies such as this must demonstrate a willingness to reform, adapt, and refocus on core competencies in order to remain relevant. In this regard, St. Vincent and the Grenadines endorses the exercise of crafting a new strategic vision for the OAS currently underway. We believe that the 4 pillars of the OAS, as set out in the Charter, are interdependent and of equal importance. But the necessary and desirable realignment of tasks and priorities must remain true to the OAS Charter, which places strong emphasis on development. The goal of this exercise is not to ensure the survival of a mutable and evolving bureaucracy, but rather to guarantee the continuation and enhancement of meaningful programs and activities that touch the lives of our citizens. Mr. Chairman, according to the World Bank, social inclusion is central to ending extreme poverty and fostering shared prosperity. Social inclusion is both an outcome and a process of improving the terms in which people take part in society. The OAS must make this journey and destination of social inclusion central to its identity and focus going forward. In doing so, this body, whose roots stretch back 125 years, will be well positioned to help shape the growth and development of its member states for the next century and well beyond. I thank you for your attention.
Agradezco al señor ministro de San Vicente y las Granadinas por su intervención.